my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be working on a cute little project. Today I'm going to be making a bubblegum themed llama. I haven't made a llama before, plus I haven't made anything pink in a while, so I thought it'd be really fun to do. Anyways, let's get started. Okay guys, the first thing that we're going to work on is going to be the sewing for the body of our llama. So right here is the pattern that I'm going to use to make our body. I've got it all cut out and everything, and all I did was I basically just drew out the shape of a llama and then I turned it into a pattern. Making patterns is actually quite easy. If you know how to draw something in 2 dimensions, you can easily do it. You just basically need the outline of the body. So basically what I have here is the main body piece, the neck, the tail, and then a strip that's going to be used for the belly. So I'm going to use my pattern pieces and get all my fabric cut out. The type of fabric that I want to use for my llama is this really vibrant pink fur fabric. So for the pieces of fabric that you're going to need a left and a right for both the neck, the body, and the tail. Then you're going to cut out a left and a right for the inside parts of the front legs and the back legs, along with that strip of fabric for the belly. Now I'm going to start on the sewing. So I'm going to start with the easiest part, and that's going to be the tail. So I'm going to take those 2 pieces and I'm going to sandwich those together and sew around it. Once I've sewn all the way around, I can flip it right side out and lightly stuff it. Next, I'm going to sew together the neck and body piece for both the left and right side of the llama. Next, I'm going to take the inside parts of the legs and I'm going to sew those onto the legs that are on the body pieces. So I'm going to lay those out and I'm going to sew down the front of them only. We're leaving the back open because we're going to have a wire frame for this piece. After all the legs are sewn together, we're now going to add the belly piece. So we're just going to sew this in between both body pieces. After that, you're going to have something like this. Now this is basically most of the sewing for the piece other than putting it together at the end, so now we need to start making the pieces for it. Okay, the first bit of clay that I'm going to be working on is going to be the hooves for the llama. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll out 4 even mounts of clay so we can use them for the hooves, because we want them to be all the same size. Once I have my balls of clay rolled out, I'm then going to push them onto the countertop to get a flat point, and then I'm going to use my fingers to make it into a little cone. After I have that done, I'm going to take the wires that we're going to use to make the legs for our llama, and I'm going to be pushing them right into the tops of the cones. I'm then going to use my fingers to kind of blend the clay over the wire to make sure it's completely locked into place. Now for my hooves, I'm going to be glittering them later, so you're not going to get a whole lot of detail. So the only thing I'm going to do now is split them into 2, because llamas have 2 toes. So I'm just going to use my tool to kind of make a nice little line in the front of the hoof. I'm not going to do it to the back of the hoof because I want to make it more sturdy, but I am going to do it to the front. I'm going to make sure all my edges are nice and smooth, and then we're going to put these in the oven for probably about 20 to 35 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. While our hooves are baking, I'm going to be making our llama face now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a lump of tinfoil and I'm going to completely cover this in a nice thick layer of clay. This is going to be the base that we're going to make everything off of. Once I have everything covered, I'm going to use my fingers to kind of smooth everything out, and then we can start adding the details to the face. So the first bit of detail that I'm probably going to add is going to be the eyes. So what I'm going to do is I want them nice and big, so I'm going to roll out some clay balls and I'm going to push them onto the face where I want the eyes to be positioned. Now again, I want my eyes to be very prominent, so I'm going to be making really small strips of clay and going around them to make an eyelid. I want them to kind of look a little bit bug-eyed, so I'm not going to cover up most of the eye, I'm going to leave most of it open. So I'm going to wrap that around the eye and then I'm going to blend it into the rest of the face. We're going to do this for the bottom eyelid and the top eyelid, and then we're going to move on to making the mouth of our llama. Now for my llama, I am going to be furring the face, so I'm not going to add a whole lot of detail, but I do want to get the eyes, nose, and mouth as nice as I can. So what we're going to do is we're going to shape the lips for the mouth. So we want to get the opening for the mouth to look just right. So I'm going to take 2 balls of clay for the top of the mouth, and we're going to use this to make the upper lip. Now the upper lip of a llama does have a bit of a split, so we're going to make sure to add that as well, and then we're going to blend the extra clay into the face. Now depending on how you have the face of your llama, you might have to add a little bit of clay for the bottom lip, but sometimes if you want your lip to hang over a bit more, you can just not do this step. Once I like the shape of the lips, I'm going to move on to finishing off the nose. So I'm going to take a strip of clay and I'm going to lay it onto the face where I want the nostrils to be. I'm then going to use my tools to blend this in and to deepen the holes for the nostrils. Once I have that in place, I'm going to end up using one of my tools to add a bit of texture to this because it's not going to get covered in fur. After that, I'm pretty much happy with how the face looks, so I'm going to remove all the extra clay built up at the base of the head because we don't need all of that, and then I'm just going to put 2 little holes behind the eyes so that we can connect the ears to the face later. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 275 Fahrenheit for probably about 45 to 55 minutes. Okay, our hooves are out of the oven and have cooled to touch, and now we can work on the wire frame. So all I'm doing is I'm going to be taking a long strip of wire for the spine of the llama. The gauge I'm using for all my wires right now is a 14 gauge, and then I'm going to use a 20 gauge to wrap everything together. So I'm going to take that spine and I'm going to take the wires that we have the hooves on, I'm going to combine them, and we're going to wrap them with the 20 gauge wire. Now that we have the wire frame put together, I'm going to start decorating our hooves. So what I'm going for with the hooves is I kind of want a pinky, kind of silvery, glittery look to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a silver modeling paint and I'm going to paint over all of the hooves first. I'm going to let that dry, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to mix up some resin and I'm going to paint over that with the resin. Once I have all the hooves completely covered in a nice thin layer of resin, I'm then going to be taking a pink glitter and I'm going to roll my hooves in it. I'm going to make sure everything is completely covered. Now I do recommend getting a really fine glitter for this because the little chunky bits might end up sticking out and getting a really rough texture to it. We're then going to set this aside to dry somewhere safe, and it's probably going to have to take about a day to dry. Okay, it's the following day, our hooves are nice and dry, and we can start putting our llama together. So I'm going to take that fabric body that we sewed earlier and I'm going to flip it right side out. Once it's flipped right side out, we can then put it over our wire frame. So what we're doing is we're basically just taking the wires for each leg and running it through the holes for the legs in the fabric body. After we have all that in place, we're then going to take our glues and we're going to start gluing the fabric for the leg all the way around the base of the hoof. So we're going to use a combination of E6000 glue and hot glue. Now I'm not mixing the glue, I'm just using the hot glue to kind of hold the fabric into place while the E6000 dries. So just to clarify, we're not mixing these glues together, we're just using one to hold the fabric into place while the other one cures. After we have our fabric glued around all of our hooves, we're going to set this aside to dry for a few hours, and then once it's dried we can sew up the back of the legs and stuff them. After our legs are finished, we're going to move on to adding the tail to the piece. So we're just going to take that little tail that we sewed earlier and we're going to run it over the wire for the tail and then sew it into place. Next, we're going to add the head to the piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue it to the wire for the neck, and then we're going to glue the fabric for the neck all the way around the base of the head. Now a lot of the times with my pieces I end up making the heads a little bit bigger than they need to be so the fabric doesn't wrap all the way around, and that's perfectly fine, you just need to adjust a little bit for it. So I have a little triangle of fur fabric that matches the other fur, and we're just going to glue that to the top, and then after that's in place we can sew up the rest of the body. Make sure to stuff the body as you're sewing it closed. Okay, we're almost done with our llama, we just need to finish the face now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to end up primering the llama's face with a pink paint. Now I am still furring the face of the llama, but I don't want any of the white clay to peek through the fur fabric. So doing this kind of helps make sure the whole face stays pink and you don't have to do extra layers of fur. So we're just going to paint the face a nice pink color, we're going to let that dry, and then we can move on to adding details to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pair of ears for the face. So I'm going to take a little bit of felt and a little bit of the fur fabric, and I'm going to glue those together to make a pair of ears. I'm then going to take those ears that we made and I'm going to glue them into the holes that we have on the llama's head. Okay, now we can start furring our llama's face. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an E6000 glue and we're going to start covering our face in the glue. So we're just going to cover a small portion of the face, make sure it's nice and even, and then we're going to push fur trimmings into the glue to make sure it's completely covered in fur. After everything is covered in fur, we're going to set this aside to dry, and then after it's dried we can remove any extra fur that did not stick. After we've removed all the extra fur, we can now start painting the face. You want to make sure that all the extra fur is off so it doesn't get stuck in your paint. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a light pink and I'm going to start painting around the portions of the face that are not covered in fur. And then I'm going to use my brush to kind of blend that paint into the fur to create a nice fade from light to dark. Now I am going to be painting some highlights onto the furred portion of the face, but I am going to make sure to brush it into the fur as best I can so it doesn't get clumpy. Now we're going to move on to painting the eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to primer them with a nice dark pink. I'm going to keep most of my colors a nice pink tone, or I might even throw some purple in. So I'm going to primer that with a dark pink, and then I'm going to go over the center of the eye with a lighter pink, and then I'm going to start blending it in so it looks like the eye is darker around it and it lightens as you get to the middle of it. After all of that's dried, I'm going to paint on the pupil. Now remember, the pupil of a llama is not round, it's kind of like squished in the middle. So I'm going to paint that on, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a white highlight to it. After I'm done with the eyes, I'm going to move on to adding a little bit more detail to the mouth. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of highlights and speckly bits to the lip. So I'm going to let my paint dry after that, and then I'm going to go over the eyes with a layer of resin to make them look nice and glossy. Now if you want, you can call your llama done at this point, but I want to add a little bit of candy to it since I'm making my llama candy themed. So I'm going to make some fake candy to go onto our llama. So basically how I'm going to be making my candy is I'm going to take these little glass gems and I'm going to wrap them in felt to make them look like wrapped candy. So I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to hold the felt into place, so I'm just going to wrap the felt around the piece of glass, and then I'm going to be taking a string and I'm going to wrap it around the edge of the felt, and I'm going to pull tight on both sides. We're going to do this on both sides and just tie it off so it looks like a little twisted piece of candy. So I'm just going to make a couple of these of different colors, and then I'm just going to sew them onto the body of the llama. Okay guys, and that's how I did a bubblegum themed llama. I had so much fun making him. I'm going to have him along with a bunch of other creatures in my Etsy shop, so make sure to check the links down below if you want to buy anything. Also, if you guys have any suggestions for future projects, leave them down below in the comment section. I love seeing your guys' ideas. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!